Midnight News coming to you live from Algiers. I'm Miriam Zien, and here are your top stories for tonight. Israeli forces committed 6 massacres in Gaza, killing 57 people and injuring 93 others in 24 hours. Also coming up tonight, the International Court of Justice demands the immediate cessation of aggression on Rafah. South Africa, Hamas and the Palestinian presidency welcome the decision. Next, Putin calls for reinstating peace talks in Ukraine and questions Zelensky's legitimacy. Hello and welcome back to all our viewers. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza announced that the Israeli occupation forces committed 6 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip, killing 57 martyrs and injuring 93 others over the past 24 hours. The Ministry of Health revealed in a statement on Friday that the death toll of the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip had risen to 38,857 martyrs and more than 80,200 wounded since last October 7. The families of the martyrs killed in the Zionist bombing of an aid warehouse in Deir al-Balah in the central Gaza Strip expressed their shock at the horror of the committed massacre. The occupation aircraft and artillery bombardment of the warehouse resulted in the death of at least 15 martyrs, including women and children, in addition to dozens of injuries.
My son hasn't even turned 30. He died. It's sad, really sad. Thousands of youths are waiting without knowing their fate. Our sons leave the house and we don't know what will happen to them. It's sad. I call on the world, please wake up. Wake up.
The death toll of this massacre has reached 12 martyrs, most of whom are women displaced in the northern region of Deir al-Balah. They were targeted by the occupation army's tanks. Most of the bodies were carbonized, in addition to 30 wounded who arrived in the hospital. Moreover, this hospital is likely to get out of service in a few hours due to the lack of fuel, which is necessary to operate its power generator.
As you followed in our top stories, the president of the International Court of Justice said that the court considers the attack on the city of Rafah as a dangerous development that increases the suffering of the population in the Gaza Strip, adding that about 800,000 Palestinians have been displaced from the city since the start of the Israeli aggression on May 7th. The president of the court called during a hearing session devoted to a decision on a lawsuit filed by South Africa regarding the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip, including the attack on Rafah, for the occupation to immediately stop its military operations in the city, stressing that the circumstances resulting from the ongoing Israeli aggression against Rafah require changing the position taken by the court on the 28th of last March.
The State of Israel shall, in conformity with its obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and in view of the worsening conditions of life faced by civilians in the Rafah Governorate, A, by 13 votes to 2, immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that would bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
South Africa praised the ruling issued by the International Court of Justice, which ordered the Israeli occupation to stop its military attack on the city of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip. The Director General of the Department of International Relations in Cooperation at the South African Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Zain Danger, said that this is pioneering, especially since it explicitly condemns the Zionist occupation for the first time to stop its military action in any area of the Gaza Strip.
South Africa welcomes the ruling made by the court today. The court essentially ordered Israel to halt its military operations in the Rafah area to ensure that no further harm comes to Palestinians as a result of Israel's military actions and the denial of life-saving food and medication in that area and the whole of Gaza for the last 7 months. This order is groundbreaking, as it is the first time that explicit mention is made for Israel to halt its military action in any area of Gaza, this time specifically in Rafah.
The Islamic resistance movement Hamas welcomed the decision of the International Court of Justice. Hamas confirmed in a statement that it was expecting the ICJ to issue a decision to stop the aggression and genocide against the Palestinian people in the entire Gaza Strip, and not just in Rafah, saying that what is happening in Jabalia and other governorates is no less dangerous than what is happening in Rafah, calling on the international community and the United Nations to put pressure on the occupation to immediately abide by this decision and not to allow it to continue to disregard all international laws and conventions and escape accountability and punishment. The Palestinian presidency welcomed the decision of the International Court of Justice demanding that the Israeli occupation forces stop their genocide against the city of Rafah and to bring aid into the Gaza Strip and open the Rafah border crossing. In a statement, the presidency called on the international community to oblige the occupation to implement the decisions of the Court of Justice and to pressure it to respect the decisions of international legitimacy. It also appreciated stances of countries that stood by the Palestinian right, stressing that this international consensus proves the isolation of the occupation and its allies who provide its support or who provided with support, protection, and impunity. European Union foreign policy official Josep Borrell said on Friday that some European countries are trying to intimidate judges of the International Criminal Court regarding a lawsuit filed against the occupation leaders, stressing that the need to stop interfering in the court's powers. In a statement to the Spanish channel TVE, Borrell called on the occupation government and some European governments to stop intimidating judges and trying to influence their decisions with threats.
Of course, if it comes to it, and I believe that the peace talks must resume, not through ultimatums, but through common sense. They should be based on the common sense. If it comes to this, we certainly need to understand with whom we can and must deal to be able to sign illegally binding documents. In this case, we must be completely convinced that we are dealing with the legitimate authorities.
In the latest developments, the White House said U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed Egypt's commitment on Friday to allow UN-provided humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza on a temporary basis through the Karam Abu Salim crossing until legal arrangements are made to open Rafah from the Palestinian side. It's also worth noting that some of the food supplies waiting to enter the Gaza Strip from Egypt have begun to rot, as the Rafah border crossing remains shut to aid deliveries for a third week and people inside the Palestinian territory face worsening hunger. Axios reported, citing an American official, that the director of the CIA and the head of the Israeli Mossad will meet in Paris on Friday with the Prime Minister of Qatar in an attempt to revive talks on a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of prisoners. Hebrew media had quoted the office of the occupation prime minister as saying that the War Council had directed the negotiating team to resume communications regarding the exchange deal. Amid diplomatic and military setbacks, the Israeli occupation is reassessing its stance, grappling with internal pressures regarding truce deals and prisoner releases. The Zionist War Council has instructed its negotiating team to resume talks, signaling a shift in strategy. Hussein Berkan.
In the wake of Palestinian resistance, the Israeli government finds itself in disarray, wavering between negotiating and military escalation. Pressure mounts as the resistance regains strength, particularly on the northern front. The Zionist War Council tasked its negotiating team with formulating a new truce proposal, following the rejection of the previous one accepted by Hamas. This move underscores the complexities facing the Israeli government.
The occupation government and the war council are facing numerous pressures, including increasing popular dissent and substantial daily losses inflicted on the army attacking the Gaza Strip by the Palestinian resistance. Additionally, there are demonstrations by the families of prisoners, especially as time runs out. Some prisoners are being killed by Israeli raids and by the very soldiers who are supposed to liberate them from captivity.
Increasing dissent and military losses compound the Israeli government challenges. Families of prisoners protest amid mounting casualties, adding to the internal strife within the War Council. The Zionist entity seeks to navigate diplomatic and military impasses by returning to negotiations. However, internal divisions persist within the War Council, highlighting the gravity of the situation.
We believe that this popular movement, along with the political division between Lapid abroad and the War Council at home, has led to further internal divisions within the War Council. Members have threatened to withdraw if an agreement is not reached.
Internal divisions deepen within the War Council amidst political discord. The resistance success shifts the balance, expanding recognition of Palestine and imposing legal constraints on the Israeli occupation. As the landscape shifts, continued aggression against Gaza only deepens the Israeli occupation losses, signaling an inevitable reckoning with the consequences of its actions.
And still within the Palestinian file, the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, said that there is another war launched by Israel in the West Bank without being noticed. In a post on the X platform, Lazzarini pointed out the repercussions of the operations carried out by the occupation army in the North Shems refugee camp on their daily lives. He added that the area had turned into devastation after it was once vibrant with life, as he put it. We move now to different developments. Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf was received in Dakar by Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, where he delivered a written message addressed to him from the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune. He conveyed Tebboune's sincere greetings and his eagerness to work with him to bring new dynamism to Algerian-Senegalese relations. And for his part, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye asked Minister Ahmed Attaf to convey his greetings and appreciation to President Tebboune, expressing his eagerness to meet with him and work together to fulfill their shared ambitions for enhancing bilateral relations and realizing their mutual commitment to issues of peace and development at the regional level.
Le président Abdelmajid Tebboune est personnellement attentif.
President Abdelmajid Tebboune attaches personal importance to the quality of Algerian-Senegalese relations. He also grants special importance to their content and core. He stresses the need for ongoing, regular, and constant political dialogue between our two nations, given the challenges they face in the various common spheres. Furthermore, President Tebboune underscores the rapprochement between Algeria and Senegal when it comes to intensifying efforts and uniting ranks to assume our responsibilities and fulfill our duties towards issues relating to peace, stability, prosperity, and development across our continent.
The Algerian foreign minister stressed Algeria's keenness to deepen cooperation relations with Senegal by identifying priority areas, especially in light of the many challenges facing the two countries.
L'Algérie entend aussi être aux côtés du Sénégal dans cette phase.
Algeria intends to stand by Senegal at a time when it has started writing a new chapter in its centuries-old history. Algeria also intends to stand by Senegal by deepening and intensifying bilateral cooperation according to an agenda we established for a better legal framework for our collaboration and to better identify priority areas for our work, which will allow us to maximize the benefits of existing cooperation potentials in our countries. Moreover, Algeria intends to support Senegal during this phase by mobilizing greater political consultation resources due to the numerous challenges we face in this common belonging region, the Sahel-Sahara region. This region is witnessing an increase in risks and threats such as terrorism, organized international crime, human trafficking, economic and social setbacks, and recurrent political instability.
The Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf also confirmed that Algeria intends to work with Senegal to accelerate the liberation of the African continent and ensure its security and stability.
L'Algérie entend enfin être aux côtés du Sénégal dans un front commun dont la vocation et la raison d'être seraient de hâter.
Algeria finally intends to stand by Senegal in a common front, whose mission and existence reason are to hasten the liberation of our continent, ensure its security and stability, and eventually open genuine prospects for prosperity and development. Both the continental and international environments dictate that our countries should be side by side. Africa has achieved significant victories recently, establishing the free trade area, becoming a member of the G20, in addition to the international consensus to address historical injustice and enable our continent to have better representation in the Security Council and the ongoing approvals for African peacekeeping missions. However, these great victories cannot conceal the tragic failures which concern the 5 regions in our continent suffering from insecurity, instability, and tensions. These failures also relate to our economic slumps that are difficult to overcome, as well as the human development indicators to which our countries are struggling to give positive trends.
The head of the Algerian diplomacy, Ahmed Attaf, led a joint working session in Dakar with his Senegalese counterpart, Yassine Fall. The meeting focused on discussing various issues concerning their bilateral relations. They also explored opportunities to broaden cooperation into new areas. Additionally, they examined recent developments on the continental stage, particularly in anticipation of upcoming elections within the African Union. Algeria reiterated on Thursday the crucial role of the development in fostering peace and security across the African continent, emphasizing that sustainable peace demands an integrated approach. Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Ammar Ben Jama, underscored the significance of development as a fundamental pillar. During a Security Council session dedicated to open discussion on bolstering the role of African countries, Ambassador Ben Jama called for increased funding for conflict prevention in Africa. He stressed the necessity of enabling the continent to effectively address multifaceted threats, including terrorism, through adequate resources and support.
Sustainable peace requires a comprehensive, integrated, coherent, and cross-pillar approach where development stands as a key pillar. Peace and development are mutually reinforcing. Conflict have a dramatic negative effect on the attainment of the SDGs. Conflict prevention in Africa should be prioritized and adequately financed in order to enable the continent to proactively respond to the multi-faced threat, including terrorism.
Benjamin called for strengthening cooperation between the UN and regional organizations on issues related to maintaining international peace and security to improve collective security, stressing the need to adopt fair and equitable mechanisms and implementing decisions. Let's take a listen.
Reinforcing the cooperation between the UN and regional organizations in matter relating to the maintenance of international peace and security can improve collective security. Therefore, the implementation of the Security Council Resolution 2719 provide an opportunity to foster the regional ownership by the African Union of the peace initiatives through a predictable, sustainable, and flexible financing of the AU-led peace support operation.
The 10th World Water Forum wound up on Friday in the Indonesian city of Bali with the participation of the Algerian delegation headed by the Minister of Hydraulics, Taha Derbel, in addition to researchers and experts in the field of water resources, members of the Supreme Youth Council, and representatives of the civil society. The World Forum provided the Algerian delegation with the opportunity to highlight the country's strategy regarding the management of water resources and to review Algeria's experience and competencies in the field. During their participation in the event sessions and panels, the members of the Algerian delegation advocated for the right to water as well as Algeria's vision on the most important issues related to water and the environment in a world characterized by geopolitical crises and climate change.
I was quite interested in the Fugara system. That's why I came here. But I believe that, with the climate-related impacts which is happening all over the world, in your countries and my countries, we need to sometimes go back to ancient systems and see whether we can revive them. Because the modernization is very good if it is supported. Because many of our farmers, like maybe your farmers, are also not very rich.
As I said, Algeria is among the 19 participating states. Algeria is very important for the program, for our program in the Mediterranean, because this is one of the participating states which is impacted by the impact of the climate change. So we have severe impact of the climate change, and the fact to demonstrate the solution in Algeria, it could be replicated not only on the south, but could be applicated in the north. And we have evidences in Algeria, very good results. In particular, for example, varieties of cereals tolerant to drought or to salinity.
To Russia now, Russian President Vladimir Putin stated on Friday that negotiations for peace in Ukraine must be reinstated, emphasizing the need for a common-sense approach. Putin reiterated Russia's position that the legitimacy of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expired. During a press conference in the capital city of Minsk with Belarusian President, Putin reaffirmed Russia's willingness to engage in further discussions with Ukraine. He emphasized that Russia has never declined negotiations, provided they are based on previously agreed upon terms in Turkey and Belarus and take into account the current situation on the ground.
Of course, if it comes to it, and I believe that the peace talks must resume, not through ultimatums, but through common sense. They should be based on the common sense. If it comes to this, we certainly need to understand with whom we can and must deal to be able to sign illegally binding documents. In this case, we must be completely convinced that we are dealing with the legitimate authorities.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky conducted a working visit to Kharkiv on Friday to assess the operational situation in the area. Zelensky held meetings focusing on strengthening defense measures, particularly in the town of Vovchansk. Discussions also centered on plans to restore damaged energy infrastructure and provide housing for those affected by the recent Russian attack.
Now our soldiers have managed to take combat control of the border area where the Russian occupiers entered. And I think every unit that ensures the necessary results in destroying the occupiers. Today, we also discussed our further tasks, taking into account information from intelligence.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was it for tonight's program. If you missed any part of it, you can always check it out on our social media platforms. Thank you for joining and have a great night.